Portugal is growing significantly in its popularity among foreigners, and why not? It's got great beaches, relatively good weather, diverse topography for its size, and wonderful people over the whole. But not everything can be roses, right? As content creators on the topic of moving overseas and living abroad, we've gotten a lot of questions about our experience in Portugal. Today, Kalie and I are really excited to bring together a few others to help us answer the top questions that we get about living in Portugal. During the live stream, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Let's get started.
Hey, expats and travelers. If you guys don't know me, I'm Kalie with Expats Everywhere, and I've been living in Porto, Portugal for just over 2 years with my husband, Josh, and our almost 3-year-old Valencia. So today we have a great lineup for you. I'm going to do a quick intro, and then we're going to jump into those top questions we get asked. And of course, put your questions in the chat box, and we will get to those as well. So let's see who else is on this talk today. Making appearances. Here we are. Okay, so first, Michelle. We have Michelle with Honeymoon Always, who is in Lisbon, and she has been there for about 1.5 years with her husband, Dan. Then we have Cheryl, who is also in Porto with me, and she is in Porto 1.5 years or so with her husband and their preteen daughter, almost a teenager. And then we have Izzy, who was born in Portugal. Her mother is Portuguese, her father is South African, and she is in Algarve. So we have the whole spread today. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions that are super important that we all want to talk about with the different areas that we live in and our different experiences. So first things first, safety is such a huge topic that we get a lot of people ask. So Michelle, I'm going to start with you. You are in Lisbon, which is the capital city, big metropolitan. Safety-wise, how safe do you feel there?
I actually feel really safe. I think, globally, Portugal ranks really high safety-wise. And I think sometimes people can mistake that for thinking that like no crime happens or that nothing bad can happen. So then I hear people feel surprised when, if something gets stolen or maybe there's violence of some sort. So you do still need to be aware and conscious and conscience aware. You still need to be careful, but and you still have to make smart decisions. But overall, the safety in Lisbon feels very good to me.
Have you ever had anything happen to you or someone that you know, like pickpocketing or anything like that?
I've met people who have had bad experiences with like pickpocketing, but it's more so like friends of friends. And the only thing that's kind of happened sort of in my close circle is people have kind of been taken by like a taxi driver. Like a taxi driver will try to get more out of them than they were supposed to pay or something. But that to me doesn't really rank on the safety scale. That's just kind of an international traveling circumstance. So I've never experienced anything that I would put as an unsafe situation.
Right. Okay, great. And then Cheryl, you're in Porto and you're a musician, so maybe sometimes late nights in Porto, walking around in the dark. How do you feel walking around in Porto?
Well, I do feel sometimes, I've never had any reason to feel unsafe. But you are still a woman or female walking alone. And so I just tend to walk pretty fast, but I've never had any problem. I've never had any issues with anyone bothering me. So I feel much safer here than I did in the US. I wouldn't do the same thing. I wouldn't walk around a city in the US at night by myself, most cities. So I feel pretty safe actually.
Great. And then Izzy, you probably have a very different experience being from Portugal, being down in Algarve. You're in high school. So when people talk about safety, like what do you think? Like, how do you feel?
I feel very because I've never lived in a country where it's dangerous or anything. So I feel like I'm very unaware of certain things. Like, because I've been walking like alone since I was like 10 years old. If I'm out at night or something, I don't feel scared ever, especially if I'm with friends and stuff. So I feel like it all kind of goes over my head, like the whole safety thing, because I've always felt like this.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's common then 10, 11, 12 to be out with friends, walking around, and that's a normal thing for you to do in Algarve.
I remember in middle school, you're allowed to go out for lunch. Like you are allowed to leave the school for lunch. And we've been doing that since we were like 9, 10 years old. So I've always felt very safe.
Okay, that's good for anyone who has kids and they're wondering
Yeah.
what that kind of culture is like. That's what you do. Great. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on from safety. And next, we have forming community, which is a massive topic because a lot of people wonder, like, how do I meet people when I get to Portugal? And I have interests, but how do I find other people who have the same interests? So, Cheryl, let's chat with you. How do you meet people in Porto?
I think that you meet a lot of expats just because, well, for us, I'm a musician, my husband's a musician, so we kind of meet people because we connect with them on, social media or whatever, and then we kind of branch out and meet their friends and so forth, and we also just pursue avenues to meet other artist types of people. But also we meet a lot of people who are just Portuguese natives and just like neighbors and people next door or whatever. We just become friends with the people in our neighborhood, and I find the people here to be very welcoming and very friendly, at least in Porto. I can't speak for anywhere else, but and I also feel like, socially speaking, I feel like we have a much more active social life here in Porto than we did in the US. Because when expats gather together, they all have so much in common because they have this common thread of adventure, and we're doing this thing that's unique and no one else is doing it. And you just feel it, even if you don't have a whole lot in common with them in other areas of life, that brings you together. And it's almost like being in college or something. It's like you're a community. So
Mm.
that's the way I feel. I love our community here in Portugal.
Great. And Izzy, what about you? Like, how do you form a community and have friends?
Well, obviously through school, I think, because like most of my friends, I've known them since preschool. So I think I've always found it pretty easy to make friends, but that's because I've been with these people for a really long time. I have seen and I do hear that Portuguese kids can be quite cliquey sometimes. So like you'll go up to them and you'll talk to them and they'll just kind of be like, why? So it's like I've heard that, I've seen that, but I've also met a lot of people that are so, so nice. So I don't know. I feel like obviously it depends.
And where are most of your friends from? Are they Portuguese as well?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, my best friends, most of them aren't Portuguese. Like one, she's half Dutch, the other one's half Romanian. Um, but I do have a couple of Portuguese friends and they're great.
And
But
all met at school.
yeah. And
Okay.
then you can meet people like doing sports and stuff, but I don't really do sports. I'm not very good at sports. um, so yeah, I have heard that kids can be really cliquey, like Portuguese kids. Like for
Mm.
example, I know a lot of South African kids, and they're like the friendliest people in the world. Portuguese kids are more like reserved to their friend group, but they're really nice though.
Okay, great. And then Michelle, being in Lisbon, what advice do you have for people who are moving to Lisbon, that area, for meeting people? Because it can be such a big city. It might be a little overwhelming for people.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of meetups. We are fortunate in that we have kind of a public message out there so people know we're here. But I've had a lot of friends who make friends on apps like Bumble BFF, people who go to meetups. There's digital nomad groups that meet up fairly frequently. That's outside of the expat community, even in and of itself. So there are a lot of people meeting up and doing things. You just kind of have to figure out how to put yourself out there, plug yourself in. And, if making friends is a priority to you or building a community, you have to try a little bit, but I think the opportunities are really plentiful.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a big thing. When you move to a new place, you have to build that community to kind of start feeling settled and feeling comfortable. So it's one of the things that you should strive to do pretty early on. I know you want to get over jet lag and get settled and everything, but start building that community and making friends, and they help, show you new places, and it just makes things a little more comfortable. And there's a lot of avenues nowadays with the internet, right? I mean, there's a lot of Facebook groups that have all different hobbies. There's Eventbrite, there's meetups. So it's pretty easy if you just kind of go searching online to find something. And then, like you said, Michelle, put yourself out there, right? You got to be a little bold at first to start meeting people. but definitely doable. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and roll on to the next one, medical and dentistry coverage and options. So, a lot of people, they know that there's a public healthcare system, but then a lot of people choose to top up with private, and you can add dentistry onto that as well. So, Izzy, let's get your opinion on this. In the Algarve, what is the medical like? Like when you go to a doctor or a hospital, like what's been your experience?
Well, I'm sorry. Can you walk me through the question a little bit better?
Sure. Like, have you ever had to go to the hospital for anything, like any injury or anything down there?
Well, I go every single year. You go for a checkup. I go for that. I've never really had to go for an injury or anything like that. Um, but I think it's relatively easy. Um, I don't know much about this though. I'm really
That's
sorry.
fine. No, it's totally fine. I mean, being in high school, it's actually probably a good thing that you don't know much about this. But tell us really quickly about the annual checkup. So this is something that you do every year. It's a common thing to just go and have just a annual checkup. Yeah.
I think it's pretty common because like most stuff that has to do with medical and dentists and stuff, still my parents still take care of it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been going every single year since I was a kid to just every single year check up and make sure everything's okay. Just in general, like I think I do blood tests and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
Okay.
routine stuff.
Good. And then Michelle, what's the hospital medical scene in Lisbon? And
Yeah.
dentist if you've done any dentist stuff.
We have done the dentist, we have done the doctor, we've done the urgent care. We have had our fair share of medical situations while we've been in Portugal.
Awesome. So you're a pro.
I am a pro. I will say, overall, things have been really, really good and thorough and helpful. The adjustment was difficult. And I think advocating for yourself in a language that is not your native language is probably the biggest hurdle. There are also cultural applications on top of medical stuff. So even things that I thought would just be like, this is how medicine is, or, like I was on a medicine in the United States, they don't offer that medicine here and they don't offer it in the same dosage. So getting that transitioned over was definitely a process and something to cause me a little stress. But ultimately, everything has gone really smoothly. The doctors are really great. And because we have private care, I have no problem getting seen, sometimes even same day for things if I need to. And the dentist was perfectly comfortable and wonderful and everything I expected.
And what about the language? Did you have any issue with language stuff?
Yeah, it turns out that most Portuguese doctors, even if they do speak very fluent English, they might not have learned like female anatomy in English. There's very specific language that, and of course, I don't know those words in Portuguese yet. So talking about my specific health has been a bridge to gap. And even though my husband speaks fluent Portuguese, there are just some things that have been more fumbly to get through. And that's why I say advocating for myself has been a little bit more difficult, because then there's also the cultural application on top. There's things I'm expecting. And I'm not saying that I'm requesting or requiring those things, but there are things that I'm used to. And I'm like, do I ask for that here? Do I need that here? Do I just go with the flow? But then am I advocating for myself enough? So the language part of adjusting to medical care definitely has been a journey.
Okay. That's good to know though, that you just have to advocate for yourself and go with it and fumble through it, but it's what you have to do, and don't feel uncomfortable that you have to do that, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fumbling, and everyone I've met has been so helpful and wonderful and well-intentioned. And so if you are making an effort to be kind and patient, and they can tell that you're making an effort and you've got your dictionary out and you're trying to, bridge the gap, everyone has been absolutely lovely and trying to help make that transition easier.
Yeah. What I've found too, and mainly I've done stuff with Valencia, but it's common here to just go to the hospital if you have something, if you can't get an appointment with your primary care doctor. So you go to the hospital and you kind of have these different sections. So the first section is just like the front window, and you ask, do you speak English? Because of course it's like, yeah, it's terminology that you just don't know. And the standard is always a little, I speak a little. So like, okay, I'm going to go at this, in broken Portuguese, and they're so nice. But then, you go on to the next step, and maybe it's a nurse who's just checking something very simple, blood pressure, height, weight, whatever that might be. And they generally don't speak much English, but you kind of fumble through it. And again, they're so nice because, you're trying and you understand the situation. And then you go into the next room, right? They kind of move you into different rooms and different sections and waiting areas. But it seems like, so that part can be a little stressful because it's always like the first line of defense is like very confusing and uncomfortable. But then by the time you get to the nurses and the doctors, for the experience that I've had, which has mainly been with Valencia, they speak well, like perfect English. So then it's like, okay, you can at least, whatever's going on, we can figure it out. It's just kind of like leading up to it. You're like, oh gosh, like, I don't know, okay, like fumble through, but thankfully they're quite gracious. Cheryl, what about you? And if you don't mind, I know you speaking a little bit on dentistry, if you would like to. But what about your experience? Because you've had some medical stuff as well.
Yeah, I had a treatment for my elbow because I had tendonitis, and I had to go several times, and it took a while to find a good doctor. That's the one thing I think takes a little bit of time, is finding a doctor or dentist that you want. But once you do, they do speak. The ones that I've had speak great English. And one of the things that I really like is when they do a test on you, like if you go for a checkup and they do like an ultrasound test or whatever, which is very common here, the doctor does the test. And as you're getting the test done, they're telling you the results. You don't have to wait a week or 2 weeks to find out if you're healthy or not. They do everything right away. But it's kind of funny because sometimes you don't know what's going to happen to you when you get there because of the language barrier. So you think you're going to go get one test. And one time I went in for my elbow, and the doctor said, you'll feel a little shock. And I thought it was a language barrier, but it was actually a shock test. She was doing electric shocks on my arm. So that was that was pretty exciting. And the dentist has been great too. I think great dental insurance through Millennium Bank. I've had great experiences. It's just, and everyone speaks good English. So I can't say anything bad. I mean, I haven't been to the dentist or doctor so much in the U.S. and as here. And I think it's great. Once you find your doctor, it's great.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know that sometimes you have to go through a few doctors to find what you need. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Josh. Josh is manning the topics. Okay, lifestyle and beauty. And this is a fun one to talk about, I think. We'll talk about hair, nails, getting those appointments, massages. And I know, Michelle, you have a face because you have a lot to say about this, and I would love to start with you. What do you want to say about the beauty stuff in Lisbon?
I'm ready to go in on this. Okay. So as someone who is a regular receiver of beauty treatments, manicures, pedicures, getting my hair done, it's super different here than it is in the United States. I'll just stick with a manicure, or manicure or pedicure. So in the United States, you can almost always you walk in, you don't have to make an appointment, and there are certain sanitation and cleanliness standards. And if you're going to get a pedicure, it's very common to have like a massage chair, and you're going to have a pretty typical experience wherever you go. And what I am learning is that in Portugal, they have different nail services. So if you're like in the business, like I am, like, you're not going to find SNS. You're not going to find acrylics necessarily. You might just find regular gel polish and regular polish. So that can be a surprise for some people. Most places don't take walk-ins. So people they'll message me and they'll say, hey, I'm coming through town. Where can I walk in and get a walk-in appointment? And in my experience, that's not usually available. And the one thing that I think is really important to just drive home is that sanitation standards are super different here than they are in other countries. So it's really important that you find a place that has high sanitation standards, meaning that they're not using the same tools on you that they just used on somebody else. It is not a legal requirement here. And they may do something like require you to purchase your own kit when you show up, so that you have that every time you go in, because it's just not the same thing, and you want to make sure that you're staying safe and healthy. So lots of things to look out for if you are going to get a nail appointment in Lisbon.
Okay, great. And Cheryl, how about can you touch on hair, getting your hair cut here? How has that experience been in Porto?
I think I think it's really hard in Portugal to find a stylist. In the US, you probably go on Google or whatever and check the reviews. And in Portugal, there are some reviews, but the reviews will be in Portuguese and they'll just say very professional or great job or something, and it's not really useful. And there aren't that many. So it's really hard to find someone. And I think it's hard to find in Porto um, people that are kind of like cutting edge or aren't like kind of old fashioned in their style. But once you find somebody, they're great. You know, it's the same thing as with doctors and stuff. You gotta go through a few and get there. So
And hopefully they don't mess up your hair along the way, right?
yeah, exactly.
Like, no, I didn't ask for this color. What are we talking about here?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, Izzy, do you have any experience with any beauty stuff that you get done?
Yeah, I've been going to the same like hairstylist my whole life, so I've never really had a horror story. But like for example, we went to one in Lisbon a while ago, and my mom went, and they just like cut her whole. They just cut so much of her hair off. It was crazy, and I have friends who have like horror stories. So you definitely have to like talk to a couple people who've been there. But that's the thing; it's really hard, especially when they're like small ones. Like there was one near where I live that a friend of mine went to, and she was like, I hated it, but there isn't any information online about it. So I'd say it is a little bit hard, but I feel like once you find a good one, then you're all set.
Yeah, that seems to be the key. You have to find a good one and
Yeah.
hope and just hope that that you don't have any problems before that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, Michelle, you got something
Can I
else?
just add on that note? I think that's perfectly said. You have to find a good one. And I think what's great about the expat community is they can help bridge that gap. So if you find someone, even I would imagine anyone here on this live, but also anyone that you connect with in groups can help point you in the right direction in the city that you're in. So you can utilize that expat community to help you find somebody who's not going to cut all your hair off.
Yeah, or who's going to use the right sanitation stuff that you have. Real quick, I'll touch on massages because I do like getting massages. But what is a manicure pedicure like? What are some prices like in Lisbon to get your nails done, Michelle?
It really varies based off of how sanitary they are and how many services that they're offering. I have gotten manicures and pedicures. A pedicure as cheap as 20 euros. And I felt like it was pretty clean. And then I've seen them go up closer towards more American prices, 30 and 45. And I did hear rumor that there is one place in Lisbon that just opened up that has massage chairs for a pedicure. So I'm going to go check that out this week. Stay tuned. We will find out.
All right. Okay. I wonder if it was opened by an American or who opened it up because
He's
they
from
might know.
Switzerland. I did, and then
Switzerland.
I called and asked about the sanitation. So we are vetting it. We are finding out.
Okay, sounds good. You'll have to let us know. And then Cheryl, what is a good price for maybe a haircut or hair and color? What do you think is a good price for that?
Well, I think it's really going to depend. The first person I went to was pretty inexpensive, especially by American standards. It was like 27 euro for a cut, and like including cut and color, it was like 52 or 54, which is it just blows your mind. But then I've gone to more expensive people since that guy. So you can go, but the most expensive person I went to is a guy who goes and does fashion shows in Milan and Paris, and he cuts models' hair, and he goes to like Cannes Film Festival and stuff at Cannes or however you say it, and he was 75. So that's the most expensive price that you can pay for a top of the line haircut in Porto. To me, that's like a U.S. normal haircut price, isn't it? I mean, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
I think. You know.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, so for massages, for me, I mean, I found that there's a range. I've been to a place where a lady kind of just books a room pretty much, and she, it's meant to be for massages, but it's not just hers. Other people will use it as well. And I've done massages for 35 euro, like a 90-minute massage. Amazing. I mean, she knows what she's doing. So you have anything from that, but you don't get the whole spa experience. And then you have some of the hotels here in Porto will have a spa, but then also we're members of the Jim Holmes place, and a few of those different locations will have spa opportunities. So I've also done some massages there, but it's obviously more expensive. But when I say that, it's still not like, I was just in Barcelona, and I think the hotel, it was like for a 60-minute massage, it was like 90 euro. So you still get the prices, I think, here that are closer to like 70 euro for a 60-minute massage. So it's, is a little cheaper than some other places, but you also have the opportunity if I like to go just for the massage. So if you're okay with not having like the ambiance and the robes and all of that, then you can find some good prices. But same with the sanitation. You just want to make sure that, it's sanitary where you're going for sure. Okay, so cool. Let's move on from the beauty. I mean, I think that we could probably talk about beauty stuff for a very long time because there's a lot to touch on. But we won't go too far into it. We'll move on to domestic and international travel, which I don't know about you guys. If you've been traveling internationally out of Portugal recently, it is a nightmare. Oh, Michelle, I know that you have, but oh my gosh, it just seems like they cannot get their stuff together right now. Delays. And I know people are losing bags and it is just rough. But Izzy, I know you're in school, but have you traveled at all? You said you were in Lisbon at one point, like domestically, internationally. Have you been traveling at all?
We've been traveling domestically, me and Dad, quite a bit. We're in Lisbon right now, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm in the same room where my dad was last time.
Yeah.
So, we've been traveling because my dad's actually doing a bunch of videos on like my school, because I'll go into that later, but my school is really, really cool and there's like a bunch of different locations. And so we went to every single one across the country and it was great. We had a great time. I think we were driving everywhere, so it's not like we were trying to get buses or trains or anything, so I can't really talk on that. I know in the Algarve, that is really, really hard. Like public transport and stuff is just such a big no-no. Like don't try to get around on that because it's very unreliable. But traveling across the country was really easy, just driving.
How's the traffic? Has that been bad or it's been okay?
I think it's been okay. Dad complains about it a lot, but I think it's been fine.
Okay. Cheryl, have you guys been traveling at all recently?
No, we're about to. We're going to go to Ireland over Thanksgiving because no one celebrates Thanksgiving here. So perfect time to get away, especially if you have a kid in school. And so, it's great school break time. So,
Yeah.
but the tickets obviously are very inexpensive to fly around Europe. So,
yeah, you can definitely find some good deals. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll chat a little bit about our experience, but Michelle, you guys have been traveling a little bit. How has that been, international travel?
Yeah. So what I will say is that the Lisbon airport is ranked pretty poorly amongst European airports. They have this fun thing where they make you wait in lines to get in a bus to get on the plane. And that can add to the stress. And like you were saying before, there was a lot of chaos around baggage and flight time. So when we were flying to the Caribbean, our flight was actually canceled the day before. And so then we had to fly through Madrid and all of that, which the other point that I will say is that there's not a lot of direct flights from Lisbon to a lot of places. So like earlier this year when we tried to get to Greece, there wasn't a great flight for us to get from Lisbon to Greece directly. So we spent a couple days in Switzerland as kind of a layover. So something I guess to know about being in Lisbon is as of right now, I don't think things have warmed up completely since the pandemic and there's not as many flights available and the airport itself can add some stress. For sure.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that Lisbon doesn't have as many flights because Porto has even less direct flights. I mean, at least, in Lisbon you have TAP, which is their hub. So if you're going to find, a direct flight, TAP will be good, but it's not always the cheapest, right? Because if you're going to be around Europe, generally you look at Ryanair, EasyJet, which are budget airlines, not the best, but they always draw you in with those good prices. But the Porto airport, they don't have as many direct flights, but I find that the Porto airport is amazing. It's small, but has everything that you need. And I think that they do a really good job of getting you through security. So it doesn't feel like you're standing in lines for too long. And then when you get past, it's big enough that there are plenty of shops and restaurants. There's little play areas for kids, which is really nice. And they're all over the place. So even if you have to go through immigration, if you're leaving the EU, on the other side of immigration, it tends to be even quieter, but there's also a kids area. Their lounge, like TAP's lounge, is not good in the Porto airport. We did it once and we're like, no, not worth it. So, there's some of those things. But I would say right now, traveling domestic or international, expect delays. I think everyone it doesn't seem like anyone can get off the ground on time these days. So expect delays and, if you can, carry on your bags so that you don't have to worry about lost baggage. that's getting a little better, but it does seem like there's still a lot of kinks that are being sorted out after the pandemic. And people are like out and want to travel. So, there's a lot of people out, but yeah, travel. It's one of those things where it's like, gosh, this is annoying, but then we're at it in a couple weeks anyway. So, okay, let's go ahead and move on. Setting up utilities, a fun one, is it? I don't know. I think I'd rather talk about massages and stuff, but this is an important one. Well, Izzy, I'm pretty sure you don't know much about setting up utilities.
Not really.
So we'll get to you when we get to more of like the schooling and stuff, because I know a lot of people want to hear about that. But Michelle, you guys live in a place and you had to do all that setup. So what was your experience like? Where did you go? How did you do it? How much did it cost? How stressful was it? Tell us.
Yeah, we actually got really lucky. Our property manager came with us and kind of like shielded us like a bear. Like she just took us into, there's the one building that everyone goes to for all the utilities. And like everything you could possibly need is in this one building. And she knew how to work the system. So she was taking tickets here and tickets there and like getting us in and out. And we were in and out. We've heard horror stories of it taking people 6 to 8 hours to go through and get all the utilities set up. We had everything set up in, I think, 30 to 45 minutes. So we were really lucky to have a really great property manager on our side.
Okay, so if you know someone, whether that's a property manager or just a friend, or we did a video with Jim, who recently moved to Lisbon, and he talked about a fixer, which is someone who can just, speak the language, be the go-between, help you out. And so those are valuable. But honestly, people have been asking us, like, how do you get this fixer? And again, people are so nice. Sometimes your fixer is a friend that you meet along the way, and they just want to help you, and that's definitely a thing that you can do. Cheryl, what about you guys?
Yeah, I agree with you that sometimes it's just someone kind. It was our neighbor that helped us, and she's the owner's sister, and she speaks fluent Portuguese because she is Portuguese, and so she actually got on the phone for us and was, communicate. It would have been really difficult, I think, if we had to do it without her help. I think that would have been hard, but she did a great job and interceded for us and helped us with the website and everything like that. So anyway, that's what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, because like Michelle, you were saying, there is an area where it's a bit of a one-stop shop, and you go and you can get a bunch of different things done. So every city has that. But I would say that the biggest thing is patience, right? I mean, it's quite possible it's going to take a long time. So maybe have a backup plan if if you don't have the lights or something on it at your place. Another alternative as well is that you can rent a place that has utilities already set up for you, and it just stays in the landlord's names, and then they give you the bills. That's something that you can do as well. But okay, utilities, let's go ahead and move on. And guys, keep putting stuff in the comments. We will get to those. We just want to roll through these important topics first. So cultural and live events. Izzy, I'm actually very interested in hearing your take on this. What kinds of things do you do? Like just for fun? Like, are there events? Are there concerts? Like, what are some options down in the Algarve?
Well, I find that not much happens in the Algarve, but in the summer there are some really cool events. Like there is the Festival Med, I think I said that correctly, which happens in Lolé. There's Festival F, which is like it's more like a music festival in Faro. In the summer, there's a couple cool things going on. In the winter, though, it is really, really quiet, I find. But I find that there's so many cool concerts and stuff in Lisbon because I love concerts. So I spend most of like my money that I can get on those, and then we come up to Lisbon to see them because that's where most stuff happens, is Lisbon and Porto, obviously.
Okay, what kind of concerts are they? Music concerts? Like
Yeah,
just
music.
popular bands?
Yeah, that's typically what I go for. But there's a bunch of cool things. Like my aunt's gonna go watch, I think, the Soweto Choir or something soon, and she's super excited to see it. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, I think, but just more in the cities. Like in the Algarve, it is pretty quiet, I find.
Okay, that's good to know for those who are, wanting to move down to the Algarve, but maybe that's something that they really want to be near. It's a little harder, and maybe Lisbon would be more of an option. So, Michelle, what's going on in Lisbon? What kind of events have you been noticing there?
Well, Dan recently went to a football match and had the time of his life. So he was having a great time with that. And we haven't done a ton of concerts here. We've been traveling a lot, but part of our travel has also been to concerts. So we flew to Ireland to see Elton John. So even just having the flight hub has made concerts around Europe, more accessible for us. But the cultural events that are happening in Lisbon is part of the reason that we wanted to stay in Lisbon and that we really love living here, is that there's always something happening and people are either here or in Porto, and it's easy for us to get up to Porto. So it's a great spot if that's the kind of stuff you like.
Josh is commenting that because I don't know, for those who can't see, I'm wearing my FC Porto jersey because there was a game a few hours ago that we went to, and then it's like, okay, we got to get back because we've got the live. So yeah, so we have annual like season tickets to FC Porto, so we go to those games and we really like it. So that's something that's nice for those who do like football, soccer. Being in Europe, the times are great, right? So it's not like you have to wake up early or stay up late, depending on where you are around the world. You're able to catch those live events, and they're just a lot of fun. Cheryl, let's chat a little bit about Porto. What's going on? Since you are a bit in the music scene, you can touch on that within Porto, or just other events that you've noticed that have been interesting in Porto.
Yeah, there are music events, but there's not a lot of original music, but there are touring bands that come in and here and there, and larger acts and Portuguese. It's mostly Portuguese acts and people coming on tour. We went to a couple concerts. We went to a jazz show at a pretty big venue here, and it was great. And there's also these events that have like there's like wine festivals or beer festivals and things like that, where they have music and arts and cultural things. There's a lot going on in Porto as far as the arts in general go, like gallery shows and events and things like that. So and there are emails that you can get on. There's this thing called Porto Social Club that I get once a week, and it tells just all kinds of stuff that is happening in Porto, things you can participate in, like if you want to learn how to make a pastel de nata, or if you want to learn how to do pottery, or, or if you want to go to a concert or hear comedy, it's all listed on this email. So just things like that can help you find your way.
Yeah, that's some great advice to some of these newsletters that go out that give different things to do. Just get on those and you can see what's going on around. I'm on that as well. And I saw one time they had like this, it was like an outdoor escape room for couples or something, like escape something. I don't know if it was supposed to be like a scavenger hunt or I don't know. We obviously couldn't go because of Sia, but I was like, that sounds interesting. So yeah, lots of different options as well. Like you were saying, where you can make things. And I would say in the summers, it seems like there's always something going on. Like every week, it's like, what fest is it now? You've got the beer fest and wine fest. And with us too, we've got WOW, World of Wine, and they're always doing some sort of event over there because of their different, experiences that they have. So they just had like Chocolate Fest there, and there always seems to be something going on around Porto, and WOW does a lot as well. So, and the one time too, like we, Expats Everywhere do meetups, and we, excuse me, and we had the one meetup at the Hotel Muku that you suggested, Cheryl, and because that's kind of like a like you're saying artsy, but like they try to be a venue for music as well, don't they?
Yeah, it's a music hotel. It's music themed, everything in it. They have instruments in each hotel room. You can actually play the instruments. They have a venue in the hotel, a music library, and they put on a lot of shows. A lot of touring acts come and play there, and they have a restaurant. It's a great place.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Josh just put it up. Oh yeah, Izzy, go ahead.
I just want to say quickly before we move on from that, I don't know if anyone's interested in this, but like for whoever's interested in like music festivals, there's so many in the summer all around Portugal. There's like over 10 really, really big music festivals in Portugal. Like they're really, really good. I just wanted to mention that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I mean, you're right. And they also, even other things that they do is like the traveling, like the Roman medieval thing that travels around. So they have a lot of things that travel around in the summers, the different cities that you can experience. Okay, good. That's good though, because I think a lot of people are interested, like, what is the music scene like, and can I go to different concerts while in Portugal, and where would that be? So that's good to know that there's a lot of those circulating, especially in the summer. Okay, great. So Josh popped up here that we've got the meetup here in Porto on the 10th. We're finalizing the venue, so be on the lookout. We'll put it on the community tab here on YouTube, and then also on our social, so Instagram, Facebook, things like that. Check that for the meetup. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, which is foreign foods. Okay, this is fun, and I think always a difficult thing when you move to a different place. You try to find certain foods, like whether you're looking in a grocery store or you're looking for a restaurant. So Cheryl, how is the food scene in Porto?
You mean getting the ingredients you want to make, or restaurant food? I mean,
Let's go with
which
both.
one?
Yeah, go with
Okay,
both.
so ingredients can be a little tricky. Some things are easier to find than others, but you kind of network with your other expat community, and we kind of always have these conversations. Did anyone see fresh jalapenos, or can you find canned pumpkin, or whatever the item is you're looking for? Because there are a few things that are pretty hard to find, but you help each other and you find them. And so Mexican food, I would say, having lived in Austin, Texas, having lived in San Diego, kind of picky about Mexican food. Not fantastic here, but you can make your own somewhat. And there is Mexican food, there is there is Asian foods of all kinds. There's quite a bit of that, and you can find pretty much any cuisine in Porto. Probably not in the smaller towns as much, but I think you can find it. It's just sometimes if you get Italian food, it might be kind of an Italian Portuguese fusion or something. You have to go with somebody that maybe the chef is from Milan or Rome or something, and then it's going to be more authentic. So
Okay, good to know. And Izzy, what kind of food do you eat down in Algarve?
Well, where we live, there's quite a few different like restaurants. So there's like an Indian restaurant, and there's a sushi place, and there's a Chinese place. So where we live, and we live in a pretty small place. We live in one of the smallest places in the Algarve. So I find it that it's pretty easy to find most things. I know that like at one of our grocery stores as well, they have like this little section which is like food from different places. I don't know if it would have like American stuff, but I know that it has like Indian stuff and it has like Mexican stuff and all these things. But I'm pretty used to the Portuguese food. It's great. Someone was saying it was bland. It is not bland. It is really, really great. So yeah.
What's your favorite Portuguese food to eat?
Oh, that's a hard question. We have something which is a arroz de pato, and that's really good. It's duck rice translated. That's really good. And then there's bacalhau à brás or conatas, which is just like cod with cream, I guess, which sounds really weird, but it's so, so good. So, yeah.
Okay, good, good. All right, Michelle, what's the food scene like in Lisbon?
Another reason we love living in Lisbon is that there's a lot of variety, a lot of options popping up. We love how much Indian food there is here. The Indian food is really, really good. But
Uh-oh.
I'm seeing what's happening in the chats over here. Obviously, food is a very personal thing. It's a very it's based off of every person's childhood and their home foods and whatnot. We notice that whenever we go back to the United States, the food feels like home. It's so flavorful, full of like fats and sugars and salts and all the things that we love. And then we feel like garbage. So I find, like, both Dan and I have talked about, and when we talk to other expats, many people agree that like going back to the United States and eating the food is really delicious. And of course, it's what we're used to. But the quality of the food in Portugal is so wonderful that our bodies really appreciate it. And like our skin is better, our gut is better. Overall, we feel a lot better. And so even though there are things like Cheryl was saying, we come from Austin. So finding Mexican foods that are kind of up to our Austin standards, we haven't quite gotten there yet. And that's sometimes a little bit of a bummer, but overall, it's still a win to live here food wise.
Yeah, I think you just adapt, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and sometimes you find food that you never would eat before. I mean, we have friends who had never had Indian food just because of where they moved from in the US, and they're trying Indian food and they're loving it. Or, I mean, I think when Josh and I were down in Lisbon, we went to, I think it was a Nepalese place. They have options like that. And it's just something that maybe isn't very common, whether you've traveled a lot or not, or wherever you are coming from when you move to, you can just try new things, right? So you branch out and try the different foreign foods that you can find. So I think that Lisbon and Porto, have a little more options compared to Algarve, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist down in Algarve. And I would say too, like we found in Porto, that you have what seems to be like everything, but you don't have as many options as Lisbon. Like Lisbon might have 20 of a certain cuisine, whereas Porto is going to have that cuisine. Maybe there's only 2 or 3 restaurants. So you just have to seek those out and see what works best for you. Okay. Next, shopping experience. So I think this is another fun topic as well. Where do you ladies like to shop, and what does it look like? Do you try the clothes on there? Do you buy them and try them on at home? What's the shopping experience like? Let's start with Izzy.
Well, typically, me and my mom, we go to the mall because we have two really, really big malls close to us. And we go, depending on the day, if we have more time, then we'll try everything on there, just get it done with. If not, we'll just take the stuff home, try it there, and if something doesn't work, we send it home. We go there again, and we have to give it back. Something I don't find is very common is like online shopping. Like I did it a couple of times during the pandemic, but I'll only do it if it's something that isn't available, like close. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I won't buy from a store. I won't ever check their website.
Okay. Is that the same like with your friends? They don't online shop either?
Not really. I have a friend or two who bought a couple things off Shein, but other than that, not really. Because it's all really close as well. And it's a pretty common thing for us to go there on the weekends just because, oh, I need to go give this thing back, or I need to go exchange this, or I need this, or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Sorry.
good to know that online isn't as popular.
And it's not
for
as
shopping.
fast. That's
Oh,
the
okay.
thing. I've heard from a couple American people that they're like used to like 1 day shipping and it'll be there in 24 hours. Here, that does not happen. Like unless you're buying something like I said from a store near to you, like really near to you, it might get there soon. But if you're buying something that's coming from like the other side of the country or outside the country, it'll take a long time to get to you. I've had stuff take months to get to me. So
Ooh, wow. Okay. All right.
yeah.
Good to know. Yeah. And I see, Michelle, you're shaking your head because Amazon is not the same here, right?
Amazon is getting better. When we first moved here, that's when they first opened up. I'm not a clothes shopper on Amazon, but in general, shopping on Amazon has gotten so much better. Amazon Spain specifically. So that is a decent resource, and we've gotten things in 2 and 3 days from Amazon Spain. So it hasn't been too
Amazon,
bad for
definitely.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say Amazon's probably one of the only ones that is that fast, but they're kind of known for that, right? And then shopping, Michelle, do you just shop at malls, or have you found little markets that you go into, or is it just like mall shopping?
It's a good question. I have not been extremely successful in shopping. So the malls is generally where it's at. And I think, yeah, kind of like she was saying before, it's just online shopping is so different. I'm used to being able to like, oh, I know I need this one thing. I can just type in some search terms and have 15 options available to me. And that's just not the same here. Websites are not indexed the same. Even like point of sale systems are not connected. So if you buy something online from H&M, you cannot return it in store. So like the systems are just not as connected as they are in the United States. And returns are they're fine, but they're just not as easy to do as they are in the United States. So for me, if I need something, I go to the mall and cross my fingers that I can find it.
Okay. And Cheryl, what about you? What's the shopping experience like?
I never liked malls, so I still don't. But there's some great boutiques in Porto. There people design their own clothes, or they bring in clothes from designers from other countries, and they're very inexpensive, very affordable, and really cool. And there's a few vintage shops too. But I do order some things online, and I order vitamins and like sunscreen and stuff because I'm really picky about the sunscreen. I order that from iHerb, which IHERB, and you can get stuff in Portugal from there, and they take care of all the customs and VAT and all that stuff, so you don't have to worry about it. And it always comes faster than they say it's going to come. I've ordered from them like 3 times, and it's been a great experience. So if anybody is worried about vitamins or any kind of natural skincare or whatever, you can do it that way. Just funny. I haven't really ordered from Amazon much, but iHerb is good. And Josh is saying about grocery stores and fruit markets and stuff. I do shop at local fruit markets, fruit and produce markets. I haven't done the butcher yet because I'm a little scared. I don't know how to talk. I'm speaking enough Portuguese for that. But I do use local bakeries, local everything, small, and then go to many, many little grocery stores for the different things you need, because it's not like you have this giant super grocery store that has everything. So if you're going to make a recipe, you may have to go to 3 or 4 stores to find all your ingredients that you need. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
way it is. But that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Lots of walking or whatever, you get your exercise.
Yeah.
So
I think that the butcher, like you touched on, is one of the ones that scares people the most because you go in and you look at things and you're not really sure how to say what, or you don't even know what the cut is, or you don't know
yeah,
how to ask for the certain cut and if you're going to get the right one. And then like how much you want. One time,
yeah.
this is when we lived in Spain a long time ago, Josh, I think he was trying to get like a half kilo or something. And we ended up with 1.5 kilos of it. And it's just like, wow, okay, we got a lot here. What are we going to do with this? Put it in the freezer. But so I think the butcher is difficult, but it seems like everyone who uses the butcher, they're so kind and they work with you, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they don't speak much English and you go through your broken Portuguese, but they seem to be very helpful. So
Yeah.
that's always nice. Izzy, do you guys get most of your grocery stuff from like a Pingo Doce or like a grocery store, or do you guys go to some of the smaller markets?
Well, when it comes to like butchers and stuff, I know that we have a butcher that we typically go to. But most of the other stuff, we get it from Continent because it's easy and we know where everything is. But yeah, you might not be able to find everything in one grocery store. That's happened many times, like, especially if you're trying to cook something that's not from here. So like me and my mom were trying to cook something and we needed buttermilk. And we could not find that anywhere for the life of us. So we had to go to like a whole different supermarket, like 20 minutes away from us. Which is not very far, but to us it's very far because we live in the Algarve. Everything's really close by. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's.
So yeah, you might have to go to a few different places. You might have to order something online, go to a specialty shop. Sometimes there's the health food shops that have certain things that you might find as well. And this goes for whether you're looking for beauty products. There's different natural shops you can do. So lots of options. You just have to find substitutes and figure out what works for you. If you really want to make a certain dish or something like that, then maybe some substituting. But okay, let's go ahead and move on. I think we've got one more topic, and then we'll get into some of these comments. So schooling, which I know it's a little hard for everyone. I'm just going to go ahead and chat real quick about what we do because our daughter is almost 3. So we've started her in what's called a creche, which is kind of like a little bit of a preschool. It's kids can start at 6 months there, and they have to be in actual school when they hit 6 years old. But these creches are like these preschools pretty much. And so there's public, there's private. The public ones are free. The private ones are very affordable. We've put our daughter in a private one because they have more, instead of it being a bit more like a daycare, it's like actual classes. They've got gym class and music class, and it's all in Portuguese. So it's really nice because she's learning Portuguese, and she's also being able to work on her social skills, with the 2-year-olds kind of bebopping around. So for those of you with little ones, there are some really great options until they start school around 6 years old. And then just chatting a little bit about what schools are. Izzy, I think we're going to let you take this one away because you're the pro on this one, because none of us are in school. So Izzy, tell us about schools. What is it like?
Well, I went to Portuguese school for majority of my life. I changed to international school about a year ago. And Portuguese school is really, really good. The Portuguese system is apparently quite hard, actually, which makes it like, I've heard, I don't 100% take my word for this, but I've heard that like universities really like it when you say that you are in the Portuguese system because it is so hard, apparently. I really, really loved it. I changed because I want to study outside of Portugal. And so I wanted to start learning my English properly because English classes, they're okay, but they're nothing that great. Like they're very basic. And so I wanted to just kind of get more in depth. And I changed to a school called Brave Generation Academy, which is completely different to anything you've probably ever heard of. It's really, really cool. So it's all online, but I have my course online and I do it myself. I go through it myself. I don't really have a teacher talking to me, telling me how to do stuff. And so I take my computer and I take my headphones and my notes and whatever, and I go to this place, which we call a hub, every single day. And so I'm there with people ages 12 to 18 we're all doing our own thing and we all socialize, and it's a really, really great school. I've been there for a year and I think everyone should go. It's great. In the Algarve, at least, we have a bunch of private schools, which, of what I've heard, are not the greatest. There's a couple that are pretty good, but most of them, teachers aren't there, and there's a bunch of problems with them. So I'd definitely recommend doing some research before putting your kids into a private school in the Algarve. So I'd recommend either the traditional Portuguese system, which can be really hard, or I'd recommend my school, which is BGA, and it's really great.
Okay, so I do have a question about your school. So can you be anywhere in Portugal and go to one of these, or do you have to be close enough where you do go to the hub, or the hub is just an optional way of studying?
Well, they do want you to go to the hubs. I'm a bit like, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty sure that you have to be at a hub, I think, 34 weeks of the year. So you do have to be close to a hub. But luckily, there are 30 hubs or over 30 hubs in the whole of Portugal. So there are like 4 in Porto, there are 4 in Lisbon, there's 4 in Cascais, there's tons everywhere. So I think people would be able to find them. And they're really, really great. I don't know what else to say. They're so, so good.
Okay, good. So for those who missed it, can you give the name of it again for people who
Yes.
want to search it?
Brave Generation Academy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like this big green logo. You'll find it.
Okay, awesome. So I think that, if you have kids, then the Portuguese schooling is a good option because it's quite rigorous and a good education. But considering that if your kids want to maybe study outside of Portugal, the English side of things, maybe, you learn English and you speak English, but maybe academic English might be a little more difficult. So it might be better to either switch or start off your kid in something that's a bit more international for the possible future, right?
For
Yeah.
sure. And I know there's some really good international schools around Portugal. I just think that the ones in the Algarve apparently aren't that great.
Yeah, I think that Lisbon has a few really good ones, and it's not just necessarily English speaking, but there's the German and French. So there are options for international schools for different languages as well. Lisbon has probably the best ones, and then Porto has a few. But yeah, okay, awesome, great options there. So we'll get to the comments in just a minute. But on our last live feed, we chatted with someone named Dallas who has an alternative to getting your housing for D7, and on that live, he is gifting someone a patron to become a patron on our Patreon page. And so if you commented on that live or within 48 hours of the video, then your name was put into this fancy little thing that Josh is now putting up on the screen. Where to go? We have this little spinner with everyone's name. Here it is. And so what we're going to do is we are going to do this 3 different times, the spinner, to choose 3 people. And the first person to contact us, whether that's on this live because you're here or you email at info@expatseverywhere.com, the first person to email will be a patron for a year. So because we don't know everyone's name. So Sugar Pills. Oh, Sugar Pills. That's fun. Okay. First one is Sugar Pills. Sugar Pills, if you're on here, comment now to win or email at info@expatseverywhere.com and you'll get 1 year free of our Patreon and what that access is there, which is a lot of great information. Next is Mark Rogers. Okay. Mark Rogers. So again, if you're on this, I feel like a game show host. Actually, I'm like, now is the time. Or, one of those telethon, like call now. Okay, we'll do one more and then we're going to get into the comments. So last one is Mike Sarah. Okay, so you guys, the 3 of you, if you're on this live, you can chat, put something in the comments. First one to get to us either through this or comment in this video or email at info@expatseverywhere.com. We'll get 1 year free of our Patreon and all of the cool stuff that accesses thanks to Dallas and his services there. So moving on, we're going to answer some questions here. What is the number one thing you miss about the U.S. that you don't have in Portugal? Really quickly, whatever comes to mind first. Michelle, go.
Knowing how everything works.
Okay, good. Cheryl, go.
Access to things that you want to get quickly. It's hard to get them,
Okay, Izzy, this might be tough because you didn't live in the U.S., but is there anything you feel like that's lacking from Portugal that you wish you had?
I'm really sorry. I don't have an answer for this.
That's fine. You shouldn't. Mine would be Chick-fil-A sauce. Okay, moving on. So what would it cost to hire a translator to go with you for 2 to 3 hours? That's a good question. Michelle, your property manager just helped you out, didn't charge you?
Just did us a solid.
Yeah, which is really nice. I think it's going to depend. It's depend on what they do as far as their job, if it's their actual job, if they have something else and it's kind of a side hustle. But I mean, I don't think it's going to be that much. You shouldn't pay that much for it, but prices will vary. So that's a tough one to actually pinned down. Okay, moving on. Would you advise hiring someone to assist you with utility setups as well as local residency certificates for tax-free import of personal property? Josh and I are quite DIY type, and so we do a lot of that stuff ourselves, but we have a lot of experience because we've been abroad for about 14 years now. Michelle, clutch
Yeah,
to
I can
hire someone?
say if you have patience and kindness, you can do it yourself.
Cheryl?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go, Cheryl?
Yeah, we brought our own shipment over without any help from anyone. We did the paperwork, we got a residency, we did everything ourselves. So you can do it if you're patient and you are willing to do research.
Good to know. Some people aren't comfortable with it and would rather just pay and not have the
Yeah,
headache, but it is quite
yeah,
possible to do these things on your own for sure.
yeah.
Okay. Moving on. Are there any football clubs in Portugal?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, Izzy, what you got? You're ready to go.
So there are three main ones. There's a bunch more, but the three main ones are Porto or FC Porto. There's Sporting, which is the best. It's mine. And there's Benfica.
And
Those are
Benfica,
the
yeah.
three main ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Benfica and Sporting are in Lisbon. Obviously, you have Porto, FC Porto here. Braga is another one that's up and coming. But yeah, there's the league is fun to watch for sure. And the top teams are in Champions League as well, so they play European football too. Michelle and Cheryl, anything to add?
I think you have that part covered, Kelly.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, Josh is behind the camera being like, okay, I think we're good. I think he's been popping up some comments and some questions as we've been going along. Oh, he's saying one more. Has anyone had experience with laundromats? And if so, please let me know what people should know. I definitely do, but I'll let anyone else on here raise your hand if you use laundromat. Okay, Michelle?
We've used them every so often when we need a dryer or when our machine breaks. And I'll be honest, I don't think it requires any like special information, at least to my experience. It's pretty similar to what you would expect, I think.
Yeah, I think so. For us, when we first moved here, our place didn't have a washing machine, and so we just we got the loyalty card, which makes it a little cheaper. You just load your little loyalty card. They're very clean, though. I wouldn't say like all the ones we've ever been to, whether it was in Porto or just traveling around Portugal and doing laundry along the way when we did our 3-month project last, not this past summer, but the summer before. So they're very clean. Yeah, a lot of them will be in English too. You just do the machine and you can change it to English and you load, you look at your number, and it's pretty easy. What I would say, one thing that's really nice is every laundromat we've been in Portugal, they preload the detergent and the softener. So you don't have to actually buy your own. Michelle, do you have a different experience? Do you have to actually put your own in?
If that's the case, we didn't know.
And I would say the very first time I walked in with the thing, because you think you have to get your own. And I was like, how do I load this? And someone showed me, oh no, and it does say it's you don't have to actually use your own detergent. It's all preloaded. So I found that to be really nice.
I'll give a shout out to my husband who does when he does the laundromat. So it's possible he knew and I'm just the dum-dum. So.
That's fine, but it's actually pretty straightforward. They're very clean and very easy. So I wouldn't be scared of the laundromat. And a lot of people too in the winter, I would say, they wash sheets and blankets and then they run over to the laundromat and throw them in the dryer because it's big industrial dryers and they're quite quick rather than having to hang stuff and takes forever to dry in the winter. But yeah, so it's an option. Well, awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, Michelle, Cheryl, and Izzy. It was really interesting and fun talking. And I wish we could talk a lot more on these topics, but I don't know, how many people want to watch for 5 hours of us talking about shopping. I don't know. I think it'd be fun, but maybe not everyone would. And for those of you who are new to our channel, make sure that you subscribe. We've got a lot of content about Portugal. If you need help with anything, especially things like the D7 visa, we have a course for that. You can email us at info@expatseverywhere.com. And finally, the very last thing I want to say is Josh and I recently launched a new channel called Expats Everywhere Explores. So for those of you who are interested in more than just Portugal, whether that's through travel, possibly moving, then you want to check out that channel because we're going to be on there doing vlogs, city guides, and just showing you what the world's like so that you can get out and explore. Now, everyone, see you guys later. Let's get moving. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us.